Welcome back to another interview by the Dutch investors. There are moments in life when you're extra excited, and I would lie if I told you I wasn't very excited and even a little nervous today. To make matters worse, I missed our first appointment. Yeah, I know, how stupid. But Ruben was nice enough to reschedule. Wegman has announced that he will step down as CEO in 2026. So we are very grateful that he took the time and effort to come on the show and talk about his journey as CEO, the future of Nedap, AI, and much more. Enjoy today's conversation with the CEO of Nedap, with Ruben Wegman. Well, first of all, Ruben, thank you so much for taking the time and energy to join us today. We had a little bit of technical difficulties to start, but we're here now.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, this one of the I have too many PCs connected to too many devices. That's not helping me very much.
Technology, it is always a thing. It must have been a busy or hectic period, rather, recently with the Q3 results coming out and, of course, the news that you'll be stepping down as a CEO somewhere next year. So how have the past few weeks been for you?
Pretty intense. This is the first time I had to make this announcement, so I didn't have a lot of experience. Of course, we have been very open about my current situation, that I have Parkinson since 2018. And we all know that the time would have come that I would have to make an announcement that I would leave the company. But we apparently it had a bigger impact than I expected within the organization, or perhaps it was an estimated impact. But we also have to be clear that this organization will run also without me. I'm just passing by for the last couple of years, and I'm quite confident that Rob and Rianne will take over as the management team going forward. Well, so that's about me. Now let's focus on the company at the third quarter. The third quarter was just a confirmation about the fact that we're on the right track going forward.
Yeah, it is about the company, and we'll talk about lots about Nedap, but the company is attached to you. So you joined Nedap in 1997. I wasn't even around back then, so I can only imagine what it must have been like back then. But can you tell us a bit about what Nedap was like when you joined and how it's different now?
So Nedap was very much a factory at that time. So a large part of our business was contract manufacturing. So we manufacture in the order of defined products for certain specific customers, like the electronics for a power supply or the electronics for a sunroof or these sort of things. So the problem with that was, and we already had a part of our own products going forward. And we saw in 1997 that already manufacturing for third parties is not the most profitable business. So we started to focus on getting our own brand out there, but it was still early days. So if you walked around, 80% of the floors were covered in this white plastic ESD floors, ready for manufacturing. That has changed completely. Have you ever visited Nedap?
You mean in Groenlo?
Yeah, the new.
Not yet, no. We were planning on going there, but it's always on a Wednesday. I think it was on a Wednesday at least, but I usually work when the investor and the capital market days are.
Feel free to come on another day, and you get an impression about the company. That has changed completely. It's very much more an IT software company than a manufacturing facility. We quit our manufacturing already many years ago, so the company has changed completely.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'll take you up to that. We'll schedule something and we'll visit it, and we'll make it something for our members as well. Take some pictures and talk to some employees maybe. We'll make a fun day out of it.
You're more than welcome.
Thank you. So, thinking about all of what happened and you leaving in 2026, let's say we skip ahead 10 years. Where do you hope, or where do you see Nedap going? What do you hope will remain the same, or maybe change? Or
somebody told me that predicting was pretty difficult, especially when it's about the future.
It is.
I find it very difficult. Can you imagine 10 years ago when we didn't have ChatGPT, we didn't know about COVID and the whole, so it's very difficult to predict. I hope and that the same cultural aspects will still be there. The culture needs to change, need to adapt to the new situation, but there still needs to be a curious bunch of people try to be entrepreneurial and to have a real impact in the life of people with technology. I hope that will be the constant going forward. Of course, the company will need to grow, will need to be more successful, more international, and we are on the track to do that. But it's very difficult to look forward and to be ready to how the world is changing going forward. So those people that already can predict what will happen in the next 10 years, I'm not rather jealous, but I think it's very hard for me to do so. Of course, you can make all the graphs and continue the graphs, but the one thing about continuing graphs is that it will go differently than expected.
Yeah, sometimes it's easier to just look at the things you don't want to see change. So what you said, the culture, you just want to keep like the entrepreneurial spirit the same, which is far easier to predict, I guess.
I'll share the other thing with that as well, is that if you put things in forward, you almost, it's like that you promise certain things and it reduces your agility. So our strategic agility is the thing that has really set us apart in the last 15 years. Although if you look back, it looks like a very consistent thing. I know from very close by that the strategy setting is way more agile than you would think about when you look back in the history.
Yeah. Well, as most of our listeners and most investors in Nedap probably know by now, Nedap is focused heavily on 4 key markets now: healthcare, retail, security, and livestock.
Yeah.
I believe you've said that you only want to operate in niche markets where you can become market leader. Why is being a market leader in a niche so important to you in Nedap?
That's a pretty standard business rule. And if you be the number one, it's far easier to generate enough cash to outspend the competition on the research and development. So being the number one is a strategic advantage.
So let's say a new competitor comes along in one of these markets and wants to take on Nedap, take market share, perhaps try to become market leader themselves. What separates Nedap from those startups or those competitors?
Well, the first thing, that we already market leader, that makes life much more easier. But also the fact that we have that really, it's just a big chicken and the egg. If you're a market leader, it's far easier to remain market leader, unless you become too lazy. If you truly believe that you are inconvincible, that's when you become vulnerable. But if somebody steps in, it's quite often they step in with new technology, a new idea, but they don't have the reach, they don't have the trust built up with our customers. So the fact that we have a long-established relationship with our customers really sets us apart from a startup. The only problem is if you're getting big, you can become lazy, and that's the reason why we're now successful in the healthcare business, because the big competitors, both in the retail and all the big markets, they become lazy, or they were convinced about their invincibility, and then you become vulnerable. That's the biggest lesson. We are ourselves our biggest enemy if you go forward.
So how do you avoid Nedap from becoming
repeating
lazy?
that? So we need to be functional schizophrenic and permanent paranoid. That means that functional schizophrenic, you need to be proud about your results, but at the same time be very worrisome looking forward. Are we still making the right decisions? And the same time, paranoid means that whenever you're really confident going forward, then you should look back over your shoulder whether some competitors approaching you from the backside. So this is a pretty really puts you on your toe consistently. But that's the last couple of years, it turned out to be pretty successful if you manage to combine those characters in one person.
I see. During our research, Nedap is a holding for our entire team, the 4 of us.
You did pretty well this year, eh?
Yeah, it's done pretty good. Yeah. We're happy shareholders. Yeah. We found that Nedap often talks about the added value per employee by focusing on the superior software based on customers' needs. But how do you decide and figure out what customers need? Imagine, for example, healthcare professionals run into certain problems and maybe even have great ideas for the software, but perhaps leadership or other institutions run into entirely different issues. So how do you decide what to create or implement and listen to customers?
How would you do it yourself?
I mean, you would need to get feedback from them, I suppose.
You visit them, go there and go out there, and instead of behind your desk thinking what they need, go forward and just visit them and ask them. It's as simple as that. Just ask them.
And that is what Nedap does.
Right. We also have a lot of farmers, a lot of people with a nursing background, cardiology background in Nedap. But the most important thing is keep going outside and just ask the customer. And don't do what the customer tells you to do, but you need to do some thinking yourself. You need to get a lot of observation, and then the magic happens. Then you combined with your ideas about technology and the feedback from the market, you make the right decision. Because we do not bespoke customer specific solutions. We want to have generic platform, generic products, which are, if you like, the Apple approach. You have an opinion about the market. You love to create opinionated products.
That makes sense. So how do potential customers find Nedap solutions?
I think we can improve on that. So you're hitting the sour spot on that. I think that we can do a way better job in finding the customers, let customers find us. But the most important thing is that we need to find the customers. So if the customers find us, that's wonderful, but we should not trust them to find us. We should go out there and find the right customers for us. So we spend a lot of people with boots on the ground, or we spend a lot of money and time on getting our boots on the ground and visit those customers in their local habitat, if you like.
Yeah, sometimes there feels a bit of a difference between like US companies and European companies, where European companies sometimes feel a bit more, I wouldn't say laid back, but like US companies are always trying to push themselves in your face. And it's sometimes it feels a bit different, where I think Nedap can do that a little bit more, since the solutions appear to be very good. So you can push yourself a little bit more to the customers, I think. But
you think so?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I fully agree.
Okay. Well,
one of the big things about culture. Culture needs to change. Although we have been founded in Amsterdam, we moved many years ago to the eastern part of the country. In the eastern part of the country, we used to be modest. Let other people brag about you. You don't talk about yourself. Let other people find out what they think about you. But if you go to the States, you need to be full of yourself, full of confidence, if you like. If you are not, and you say, well, we don't know how we do. The problem with this right now is that customers that buy our product are a few months later more satisfied than just when they bought the product. But a lot of our competitors, the other way around, the marketing gives them a huge expectation, and they don't meet the expectation quite often. We exceed usually expectations, which is a positive thing. It also means that we could boost our expectation by improving our marketing. We're really focusing on that. But the fact that we just announced on the Capital Markets Day that we want to be the number one in the market, that's pretty new thinking for our company as well. It's not in our DNA as an Eastern company. You need to be modest to claim that you want to be the number one. But from a strategic perspective, it's crucial. So people understand from a business perspective that you need to be ambitious with being number one without bragging too much. There needs to be a right balance between this American mindset and this European mindset.
You've said before that you prefer organic growth, which makes sense, over acquisitions. So what made you decide to acquire Medikit, and how's the implementation going so far?
Well, we don't want to be dogmatic. So we believe autonomous growth is the way forward. That's conventional entrepreneurship. You have an idea, create a product, and try to sell. If you look at history and all sort of research that we've done, that's the best way to create value. But sometimes you have this opportunity where you can easily do a bolt-on. I don't expect us to buy a completely new key market, but bolt-on acquisition is something we contemplate if it makes sense. The reason why we did Medikit is because we fell in love with the product and the philosophy of the founders of the company. We knew that from a strategic perspective, we would like to move from the care industry for the elderly care, the handicapped care, and the mental health care organization into the general practitioners, because huisarts, the general practitioners, are pretty crucial in our business model. We could develop something ourselves, but the founders of the company had great ideas, and we just found each other, and we decided that 1 + 1 turns out to be 3. And it worked out because they were a small company with great ideas, and we had a company with a reputation and the money to put money where your mouth was, if you look at the research and development. And now, from a trust perspective, customers are now far easier to convince to switch over to Nedap Medikit. And we really are making a lot of progress. To be honest, this was also product early stage, so we had to also invest a lot in the underlying architecture to make it very stable, secure, and also from a privacy and a security perspective up to our standards. But now we're hitting the standards and we have a lot of market traction going forward.
Great to hear. The next question you might not want to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway, and we'll see. Over the years, Nedap has shifted more towards recurring revenue.
So far,
It is part. Sorry?
So far, so good.
So far, so good. You know, our job as investors can be a bit different from a CEO standpoint. So, how high can that number realistically go, you think?
Realistically, it can go to 100% if we only sell recurring revenue. But is that our objective? So from a business perspective, we see that a larger part of the business will be SaaS. But we're not aiming to sell only SaaS, recurring revenues. So I think that software will be a bigger part of the pie, software services. But if you can sell smart tags, where we have the real added value and then we can create a lot of value, we will do that. We keep on doing that. So the fact that we have both hardware and software really sets us apart. We're not so much a SaaS company, because as you probably have read, that SaaS companies are really under threat by AI coming up, software is being generated. We position ourselves as a digital twin company. So it's both software and hardware. And the unique position is that we not only do the software, we also create the data on which the software is based. So the fact that we are able to make a digital twin from a cow sets us apart from competitors that only provide software. And if you don't, so the fact that we both do the same for retail, the fact that we can do the RFID readers and the software, so we can create new opportunities, new technological opportunities, really sets us apart. So because that will have a positive impact on the margin. I know everybody that's looking from a investor perspective has this same spreadsheet. What's your turnover, top line growth, how your gross margin, your cost will develop. And I do understand that software as a service is very attractive, not only from a business perspective, the fact that you have a continued relationship, but also from a valuation perspective. But it's the other way around. We try to create products that fit the market, and then you have a result that you have this recurring revenue or not. The fact of the matter is that we expect that the recurring revenue will grow, because of the character of the solutions will be way more SaaS based. And we're not going to develop a lot of new hardware, that's for sure. It's the mix of hardware and software.
I think the mix of hardware and software, which you see in Apple and Google, for example, is more powerful than just software alone. But the four key markets Nedap operates in, is there a reason why Nedap doesn't publish a P&L per business unit or gives more transparency inside each market? Or
the reason is that we don't look at Nedap as four separate parts. Although we position as separate parts, we see it as an integral business. We share a lot of know-how, and we don't want to be bothered by making sure we calculate all the FTE being put on which projects. That goes pretty fluently. So from the front side, it's very much a very focused organization per key market. But we don't see from the back side, it's way more integrated than people expect. But also, people love to have more insight, but also has a downside as well. And the downside as well that all smart analysts can judge within 3 minutes that there's one performing the least of the all four market groups. And guess what their suggestion is going to be? Quit that business and your average will go up. So the problem with a lot of companies giving their quarterly results is that the long-term perspective turns to be way short-termer. And the key differentiator currently in our market is that we are able to make investments with sometimes a 5 to 10 year time frame. So the investment we have made in software as a service, we put all the money. We did that for the first time with healthcare, but then we reap the rewards for retail and security management right now and livestock management. So we did all the investment gearing up, getting all the know-how and experience in the healthcare business. And how can we calculate? How should we charge that to livestock and retail? That makes it from an admin perspective very complicated. So that's the reason why we consider it to be one Nedap, and we don't want to cross charge all sort of investment to other market groups.
That makes sense. So with all the things going on around the world, America and all the wars going on, and security and privacy is becoming more of a thing every day. Nedap, I suppose, I can imagine Nedap uses quite a lot of cloud storage. Are you looking at cloud solutions? Are you using cloud providers in Europe or outside of Europe as well? And is there any...
Thank you for asking this question, because you did an assumption which was not right. We started with our own cloud technology. We have a private cloud. So a lot of companies that start now with the cloud technology, when we started with healthcare, there's not much of a public cloud. So we have developed our own cloud technology based on open source, all the technology right now. But we own our own cloud technology stack. That really sets us apart from other companies. So whether you see that some competitors, they come along and they put everything on AWS. You seen yesterday what happened because the system was down. We own our own stack. We even own our own hardware in the healthcare business. But we also, within retail, we know exactly it's a hybrid architecture. We can use Amazon, Google, and the other Azure as well. And especially with security management, if a lot of people offer now a cloud-based, public cloud-based solution, then never will be successful in Europe. Because in Europe, meaning never, not at the high end. When you talk high-end security, you talk about private cloud, perhaps sovereign cloud that they have in a country in the sovereign cloud. So the key thing in this case, you have to invest way more. If you outsource all your cloud know-how to an outside company, you will be screwed as a SaaS provider. In the security management, you need to own the stack. You could leverage the investment of the cloud providers, but always in charge of your own destiny. And there's another very important, more economical perspective as well. The fact that we own our own hardware means that there's a lot of margin leakage if you use the software, SaaS, the cloud services with those big companies. They start very friendly, but the moment you scale up, you pay through your teeth for all the capacity. Their most brilliant people work in the pricing department. They know that's a big. So we see a lot of competitors that start as a startup. They grow very quickly, and they have a margin problem because we always have the option of running it on our own hardware, which is also not free, but it's way more scalable in cost price. We have a price competitive advantage.
Fascinating. Okay. Well, I didn't know that, so that's good to know. Maybe I could have known, but I don't know. Could I have known?
That's part of the story we can improve in telling the outside world. You can be damn sure that we explain our customers that it works like that.
Yeah.
If you look at customers like Airbus, Volkswagen, Total, they're never going to go use the public cloud.
It's a good value proposition for sure, yeah.
But you need to have the cloud technology. You can still leverage the cloud technology to create your own cloud or a hybrid cloud. To do the simple stuff, you can use a flexible capacity. You go outside, but the real critical stuff you run on your own or your client's cloud.
So, what is the downside of having your own?
The downside is that you need to invest a lot in technology. So we really spend more on research and development. That's what you see, 20% of turnover, and making sure that we have this cloud technology ready, our own cloud technology stack. Then again, we not reinvent the wheel. We leverage the investment in the open source community where there's a lot of cloud technology available, and we integrate that in our solution. But the key thing is that we own our stack, and we can leverage the investment we have done with healthcare, security management, and other departments. So the trick of the trade with the Nedap is that we invest a lot in a certain technology or vision, in this case, the cloud technology, and we can really have a big advantage in that. If you look at one single competitor that's only active in security management, he cannot leverage the cost over 4 market groups as we can do. So we have better technology in each and every market group because we leverage the investment over 4 market groups. So we can have a big technological advantage in one of the specific key markets.
Well, I would like to switch gears and talk about technology, but also AI. I mean, it seems like you can't go a day without hearing the word AI on the news or whatever on the socials. How is Nedap actually using AI today, either in your products, but also internally? I've seen some use cases in livestock. And as a follow-up, is AI more about efficiency or is it about creating like new capabilities that weren't possible before?
Oh, there will be a huge trough of disillusionment going forward, I'm quite sure. But AI is a key technology. The fact is, I studied computer science and I specialized in artificial intelligence back in the days in 1988. So it has been around for a while, but it's really expanding. So the key technology we have been using for the last 20 to 30 years. If you look at the smart tech we apply, there are neural networks in there. If you look at the next generation, the generative AI, that's pretty new. We use it in certain ways. It's already integrated in our product offering, but we also use it in our own processes. I think that the product offering, like the new product we have, lameness detection, which use visions to determine whether a cow walks difficult, or whether she should be treated. That's pretty. Everybody understand that you can enhance your product. We have some great ideas, more ideas, but the key thing we invest on is now how can we leverage AI to boost the added value per MP, and that's pretty difficult. Pretty difficult. We still struggling to find the proof that the investment in the added cost is turning into higher added value per MP. So what we do see is that we have a lot of margin leakage. We spent already millions on external AI providers. We're also looking to reduce those costs to start running our own models internally. But we need to be there. If we cannot lose out on finding out what works or not. But the jury is still out how you can leverage AI to make product have not only efficiency. Efficiency is pretty straightforward if you automate certain tasks. But if you can boost development capacity, that would be wonderful.
Do you use AI yourself or employees internally?
You're serious?
Yeah. Just wondering, what do you use it for? And just out of curiosity, because it seems like everybody's just trying stuff and working with certain things and testing certain AI models and features, and I'm just wondering what sort of things the employees or you
You're talking
use.
to the wrong guy. I'm piloting and testing everything myself. The last thing I did yesterday, created a song to thank my receptionist. That's too long. Where you can generate a song. I love technology. I love trying out what really makes a difference. I think the most important thing is note taking, that we use a lot of there. We spend a lot of time in making sure that, because there's a lot of disadvantages of the current AI setup. For instance, OpenAI doesn't have a European setup right now. So all your data is still going over the sea to the States. That's a big problem. And we are focused on that. How can we solve that before we really can use it at a huge scale? We already start testing. There has been a research from MIT, 95% of the AI investment is failing to generate any sort of added value. But the 5% of added value is especially for simple day-to-day tasks which are being automated. And quite often the people that are struggling with those automated tasks or tasks that could be automated don't have access to AI. So we introduce an AI enablement team within Nedap, just focusing on those simple tasks which can be automated, can be fully that no human being should be busy with that. But that's something we've done. In fact, when OpenAI introduced ChatGPT, the first thing we did within a couple of months, we allowed everybody. We offered everyone an OpenAI ChatGPT account. We really pushed that. I think we were one of the first companies in Holland to do so. And I think that 85% of the staff in Nedap uses AI on a daily basis. We're still struggling how to find or fully leverage the opportunities, but we think that if we have the right people and we have the right know-how, we can really improve our productivity. But it's still difficult to prove, to be honest. And the sort of what you will see in the next years, that people will see that they spend a fortune on tokens. Everybody knows the ChatGPT account, but you will be amazed how many tokens how much money you will spend on tokens if you start to generate code. So where they all had the first guy who was able to spend 3,000 euros in one afternoon by having the wrong prompts. So this is going to be using that in a proper way is going to be a new skill set which we're currently working on to develop.
Yeah, it's interesting to see where it will all take us. And I just find AI a fascinating thing where I can definitely see it being very useful and perhaps even like underappreciated. But I can also imagine just 5 or 10 years from now, looking back, we're like, wait, it was such a bubble, but I don't know. I am no CEO. I don't run a technology company. So what do I know?
But you're not completely wrong in the sense that there's a lot of problems. But I talked to a professor a couple of months ago. I said that AI is just like statistic 2.0. It's a way of using technology to make certain smart decisions. It's not real intelligence. The generic intelligence, that's something of general that's still miles away. But it still can be a useful tool if you know the application area where you can apply it. So, but right now, if you look at all the money being spent and the way it's being spent, that people are spending fortune on chips and then they get shares back. It's pretty. There's a lot of elements of a huge bubble. That's for sure.
Perhaps a more of a philosophical question, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. Nedap, like I said, operates in those 4 niche markets,
Yep.
which naturally puts some kind of ceiling on how far you can grow. So let's imagine a scenario where Nedap reaches full saturation. You're the market leader in all segments. What happens then? Would you focus to continuously add value, or would you, perhaps my question is, would you consider stepping into an entirely new market when you're saturated and market leader, or how do you think about it?
I'm quite sure that my successor will make a smart comment at that time.
Okay.
But if you ask me, I think that it's very difficult. I don't think it will be saturated at the end. I don't think, because I think 15 years ago we thought that the healthcare market would not be bigger than 10 million euros, and now we start to redefine the markets. So what we see is that we are getting active not only in the administrative part, but also in helping people to live longer at home by using smart technology. So you always can redefine the market that it's going to be bigger. But you could imagine that I don't think that we will, because of new growth opportunities, we will start a new market. It could be logical that from a conceptual perspective, one market turns to be 2. And if you approach it separately, retail has got a store perspective, but also a distribution perspective. That could be split into 2 separate markets. So I think that splitting markets in 2 separate markets is a more attractive concept than starting a new market overall, because the risk of starting a market is pretty high.
That makes sense. And
I'm enjoying this interview, so let's have some fun.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, what is one thing you think most people or investors misunderstand about Nedap?
That's a difficult question. No, you got it. That's a good question. Misunderstand about Nedap.
You want to get back to it later?
No, I think that misunderstand is, or not truly understand. But truly understand is the reasoning behind it. We are the driver, in most important drivers, adding value for the customer. And a lot of people consider us as a company, especially management, that is looking from a financial perspective to business. Don't get me wrong, financial perspective is important, but as a result of all the things we do in the market. And quite often you see, especially with people that use it from a stock perspective, they have a different perspective about the reasoning why you do certain things. We're not here to improve our profitability. We see profitability as a indicator that we're successful adding value. It's a different reasoning. And quite often, if you come from a different perspective, then especially this long-term perspective, I think that while I'm talking, the most important thing is that people underestimate the long-term perspective we need to have. You need to have in order to be successful. People also talk about Instagram, the overnight success within 1 year, $1 billion valuation. That's the exception. Quite often it takes 5, 10 to 15 years to grow a new business. You need to be very patient. And that's what a lot of people misunderstand.
I would love to reflect and look back at your journey over 95 years of Nedap, if I'm correct, and your 16 years tenure as a CEO. 16 years is a long time. When you look back, what are some things you are most proud of?
I'm most proud of is that it can be many dimensions that a lot of people, the people that I have inspired to do great things. I think money and position, that's all nice, but if you look, the real impact is the people around you and the sort of personal growth they all went through, me including. If you compare to the last 16 years ago, what kind of company we are right now, you see a lot of people that have shown a great personal growth. But that's inspiring other people to grow. That's something which at least inspires me myself personally the most.
Is there a year during your tenure as CEO that comes back to mind that you could?
2009, the first year.
Yeah, that was
when
a
I
fun
took
year.
over CEO. You remember 2009 when we had the huge crisis? So the moment I got the keys of the company, you take over as a CEO. 20% the revenue went 20% down. So sometimes you can be a very excellent CEO with a poor timing. So that was pretty exciting. The good thing is that I've been a member of the board of directors since 2002. So I knew the company by heart. I knew the company pretty well, so I knew what we had to do. But if we reflect the last couple of days quite extensively on the first year, we really had to make a big change in the organization. We really had to hit the ground running. And right now, if I knew at that time what I know now, then I'm not quite sure whether I make all those bold decisions. Sometimes it's good not to have too much know-how.
What would you have changed looking back?
Yeah, that I would be way more knowledgeable about the risks. But at the same time, if you don't take any risk, you take the biggest risk. So perhaps paralysis by too much know-how can be that's one of the things. You can be paralyzed by too much analysis. That's what you see a lot of organizations.
Paralysis analysis. Yeah, I think that's what they call it. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's something that Munger used to say, a big inspiration to us, where having a high IQ doesn't mean always making good decisions. Sometimes it hurts. Yeah.
That's especially with the training of the new generation leaders. They are all very smart. But on a certain level, IQ doesn't make a difference. Sometimes you have to, it doesn't feel right, and you make a different decision. Although all the analysis tells you to do certain thing, in order to get this customer, you have to do something which is perhaps not something we have thought about, but what is needed right now.
Do you think being a great CEO is also a lot about gut feeling?
Gut feeling is a lot of experience. I think that thinking fast, thinking slow. Gut feeling means that there's a lot of deep thinking that is turned into reflexes. So your judgment is quite. In the beginning, you have to think about everything is new. You have to get all sort of new patterns in your head. But once experience is getting all those patterns into your ruggenmerg in your system, so you don't have to overthink all the decisions. You can make 80% of decisions based on gut feeling. You know exactly when gut feeling doesn't cut it, and you need to make a decision based on spending more time on analysis.
Looking at 2026, Rob Schuurman will take over, will run the ship. What makes him a good follow-up to you?
Well, he will not take over just at that time. He already has an important job. It is not that he will start at that time. He's been involved in strategy. He's already with Nedap for the last 21 years. We have been closely working together, not only from a strategic perspective, but also creating a lot of business. So I think that he's very well equipped, a lot of experience, but at the same time, he's different from me. He has a different personality, different experience, different perspective. And I think that also after so many years, it's also important to have somebody with a different perspective. Make sure that you don't get blind. You make sure your blind spots are being covered as well. I think Rob and Jan and the NLT, the Nedap leadership team, are very well equipped going forward. And I wish them all the best. I won't be around to be an advisor or somebody in the supervisory board. I think that they don't need that. And I don't think it's a good way forward. So I'm quite sure that they will be very well equipped going forward.
Over the past few years, last 16 years, was there a time where you felt a lot of pressure from shareholders, or where you felt a lot of pressure, and how do you deal with such a thing?
To be honest, never. I have a lot of expectation. I think the most pressure is not so much from your supervisory board or from your shareholders, for your employees. That's the most important thing. If you take care of your employees, the shareholders and customers will be satisfied as well. And there's a lot of pressure, a lot of expectations that you want to be open, but you cannot be completely open about especially big changes. I think that the pressure has been when we had to do big changes in the organizations, like outsourcing the manufacturing and logistics. There's a whole group of people that has been loyal with Nedap. You have to say, well, thank you for your loyalty and your commitment, but we're going to say goodbye to you because we go to the next stage. That put a lot of pressure in explaining to these people, and also meeting their expectation that they will be taken well care of. That I think that if you talk about pressure, those were the days where the pressure was really intense. But also, people, if you are very clear about your objectives and you share your objectives with a lot of people going forward, that the people at least understand what you're doing. That's the most important thing, that people understand what you're doing. And the same for the shareholders. To a very consistent group of shareholders that have been involved for many years with the Nedap, they understand what we do. And most importantly, we don't go for the short-term results. We always focused on long-term, and they know what to expect from us. And that means that, of course, we have a lot of discussion with our shareholders, but I never felt a real pressure. That's important. So you have high expectation from yourself.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing. And if you put too high expectation, they did a lot of studies to make sure that this mix is right. You should not be lazy and laid back. I have no expectation whatsoever. But your own expectation are the most important ones. But if you have too high expectation for yourself, that's having to a lot of stress. That's resulting in a lot of stress, and a lot of problems which you see right now. People that come from a university or their studies, they start with their job. They want to buy a house. They want to go on holiday. That puts a lot of pressure. But it's pressure you put on yourself. So you need to pressure in the right amount, but not more than that. And how to do that, I have no idea.
Ruben can teach us everything.
Sheer luck, I guess.
I always end with a big open question to the people listening, to the people reading, whether they're entrepreneurs, leaders, investors, employees, whatever it may be. What would be your number one life lesson to the people listening? What is something you would like to speak out and give to the world before?
That's pretty ambitious. My big lesson.
Just something you've learned over the years, whether it's as a CEO or just as a human being on living on Earth. Something you
I think that
wish you knew earlier.
You know the 80-20 rule, 20-80 rule.
Yeah,
also the 2-10 rule. Yeah, you overestimate what you achieve in 2 years, but underestimate what you do in 10 years.
Yeah.
So be very consistent. Don't be afraid to strive for something for a very long time. Be urgent patience. That's the other thing. People want to have instant gratification. All the beautiful things don't come easy. You need to be a lot of patience and working diligent a certain way. But if you change every couple of months, you will never go somewhere. So that's something we learn when the people join Nedap. You will be disappointed in 2 years' times. But you will be, if you continue to go through this disappointment and continue down the right route, you will be amazed what you will achieve in 10 years' time. So urgent patience, that's what I wish everybody has.
And on that note, I think this would be the perfect place to wrap up today's conversation. I mean, Ruben, I really want to say thank you for taking the time and having the patience to come after me missing our appointment. So I appreciate it. And also from our team and from some other investors you've talked to over the years, it's been fun. It's been a privilege to look back at you on 16 years being a CDO, the transformation Nedap is going through. I know I'm speaking on behalf of many of our listeners and investors. So thank you for everything you've done so far for the company and for us. So all the best in the next chapter and good health and happiness.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruben.
Take care.